Our speaker this evening has over 24 years of experience developing database products. Please welcome the Principal Software Engineer of Actian, Christopher Hane.
Thank you. All right, well, I thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know heading out on Thursday night is probably one of the last places you want to be in New York City when you got bars on every corner. But we do have free beer and pizza if you guys haven't gotten anything yet. Appreciate you coming down. We will get started here. First, our little disclaimer. You sign over your firstborn to us if you want to use our product. It's typical type of stuff. Just a little bit about what we're going to be going over tonight. We'll give a little cloud computing overview because I'm not sure the level of the audience. We'll talk about on-premise versus cloud offerings of products. We'll talk about Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. We're going to attempt a live demo for you. Worked beforehand, so hopefully it'll still work. And then, in order to get the Beats headphones, you will have to listen to our spiel about Vector. And the summary, and of course, this is why everybody's really here. But let's thank Eric for organizing this, getting us all here. Thank you, Eric. We ran away. Make sure you get Eric your business card or fill out one of the little forms because you do want to win this. You got to listen to me for 3.5 hours. You want to make sure you get this. All right, we'll have you home by midnight, maybe. All right, so first off, who likes computer hardware? Are there any like hardware guys here, techies? We got one. You know, a few guys, right? I'm one of you guys. New server comes into the office, what's the first thing you do? You take it open, you look, oh, look at those CPUs, those memory chips, right? Come on, we're old school guys, we like that stuff. But everybody's talking about this cloud. What is the cloud? Who is working in the cloud right now? Does anybody have some experience? A couple guys, a couple hands here and there. You're probably already working in the cloud and don't know it. We'll talk about that. Do we have any AWS certified engineers? Anybody taking the developer's test? All right, it's okay. So let's, for those of you who haven't had much experience with cloud computing, let's talk about it. So cloud is defined as, cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to shared pool of configurable computing resources. That's a lot of blurbage for saying having computers running in somebody else's basement, to me. That's really all it is. It's servers running in somebody else's closet, basement, another building. You don't have to worry about getting your hands dirty. You just point and click, and you have access to systems. But there are characteristics for cloud computing. It needs to be on-demand self-service. It needs to be accessible from anywhere. From your desk, from your phone, from your car these days are all online. Resource pooling, lastly, has to be able to expand and measure. So there are 3 different service models that the cloud providers have these days. You have what's called software as a service, and I guarantee you everybody in this room is using a software as a service in one way or another. If you have a phone, it's absolutely impossible not to be using software as a service in some form. Platform as a service is one that a lot of people are now moving to, as well as the infrastructure as a service. And that's where you're getting rid of your hardware in your own systems, your own on-premise, and using stuff in the cloud. And then there's a few different deployment models. You have your own private cloud. So just because we talk about on-premise versus in the cloud, you can have a cloud on-premise. You might use something that's public. You might use a hybrid version. You might have some stuff running locally, some stuff in the cloud. So, right now, software as a service is basically any software running in the cloud that you have access to. You don't have to install locally, and you're accessing it through a web browser or an app on your phone or something like that. It's usually licensed on a subscription basis. You pay as you go, right? You want to use it, you start paying. You don't want to use it anymore? Just cancel the credit card, stop paying, click end service. They usually give you lots of specials to try to go because they want to keep you hooked. Again, access to a web browser. Examples. Any Salesforce.com users out there? You guys using that for your CRM? Microsoft Office 365, Dropbox, right? Slack, DocuSign, Zendesk, all these different things. If you're accessing them, you're in the cloud. What's that? Oh, sorry. If you guys have any questions, want comments, please feel free to jump in. I don't mind breaking things up a little bit. Let's see, so platform as a service is when you have the ability to, you don't have to worry about the hardware, you don't have to worry about the operating systems, but you have access to different APIs, different services to build your product on top of. And then we have the infrastructure as a service, which is what a lot of people are going to now. The big guys are Azure, which we'll talk about, in AWS or Amazon. This is where you don't have to worry about any of the hardware, but you are worrying about the software, you're worrying about the operating system, you're picking your operating system, whether you're gonna go some form of Linux, you're gonna run Windows, whichever it might be, you still have that level of control. But you're not worrying about what it's running on. You don't have to call up Dell or Cisco or anybody else and order a bunch of servers. You're just pushing a button and it's there for you. So who's out there in the cloud? Let's see if anybody's using. Is anybody using Amazon Web Services right now? So we have a couple of guys, okay. Anybody using Azure right now? A few on there. Alibaba Cloud? Yeah, I didn't think so. Or Google Cloud. A few on those. Google is only doing, as of last year, almost $800,000, as opposed to Amazon doing $12 billion a year in cloud services. So I don't know if anybody's been at the Google Cloud Conference this year, but they're really, I expect them to come up pretty fast. They got a lot of cool stuff going on there. But these are your top players. We're going to talk about Amazon and Azure a little more. So why would you choose to run something in the cloud versus on-premise? Well, let's talk about that for a quick second here. On-premise, right? You have hardware in your own closet, your own data center, your basement, under your desk, what it might be. Right? You're buying a server, having it shipped. It's usually long-term. You might be buying software, some databases, maybe it's Oracle, maybe it's SQL Server, maybe it's Vector, maybe it's our products. But you're paying a license up front. There's a cost for that. For any of the guys at the finance end of things, this is a capital expenditure. These are things that you usually budgeted at the year's end for the next year. If you have a new project that comes up and you say, hey, I need some new hardware, how hard is it for you guys to get hardware? If you're hit with a new project, is it like pulling teeth to get new systems? Anybody run into those types of problems? Downtime. If you have your own server, you're responsible. Well, maybe not you guys personally, but you've got a staff of people that have to be on hand in order to make sure that the system's running, that it doesn't blow a hard drive, memory chip, power supply, anything like that. That's all, you're rolling the dice on that one. You're gonna have to work out your own backup strategy and recovery. If that machine burns to the ground, how do you keep your business going? What's gonna keep going, right? And staff, like I said before, somebody has to be there to make sure the lights are still on that server. Those blinking lights go out or that solid red light goes on, you got a problem, somebody's gotta fix it. Because if your website goes down, your accounting system, whatever it might be, somebody's gotta fix it. I don't know if any of you guys are responsible for keeping systems up. Is anybody system admin here responsible for a system going down? Or you got one or two? Okay. And then, let's say you do have it on site, and you have 1,000 customers hitting your server today, and all of a sudden you guys launch something really cool, and you have 10,000 hitting it tomorrow. Is your hardware going to scale to that level? Probably not, unless you really, really built a big system ahead of time knowing this. But you're limited to whatever the max capacity is. Now, these are just a few of the thoughts on on-premise and a few of the characteristics. There's lots of pros and cons for this as well. We didn't go into too much, but cloud-based software is exactly that. It's hosted on some other vendor's machine. You're not worrying about the hardware. You might not be worried about the software. It's just magic to you. And there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot of nights you can sleep knowing that somebody else is taking care of it. You're not going to get paged in the middle of the night. It's usually pretty cheap to get involved. If there's no big contract up front, you can pay as you go. This is considered an operating expenditure. Again, this goes down to the budget guys. It's only a monthly recurring cost. It's usually a lot smaller than if you had to go ahead and buy the server, buy the software, buy the licensing, pay the services to configure it, get it all up and running, all the extra training for the admins, your sysadmins. You don't have to do any of that. It's you just subscribe to it, pay as you go. You usually get the latest and greatest. I mean, how many times are you installing a system, you get your rec, you get the hardware, you get the software, you install it, and it takes you weeks, months to get that done. By the time you're done, they've already released an update. There's already a patch, there's a new version, there's new features. You're like, all right, what am I going to do? Am I going to try again? You have to worry about that. On the cloud, everything's usually very up to date. And somebody else is monitoring it. So this guy over here, you're not getting paged in the middle of the night. You get to make the phone call and it's somebody else's headache. But usually all the cloud stuff, you're at 5 nines or more in uptime and availability. And now let's say you do have your 1,000 people, you release a new product, you go in public, whatever it is, you got 10,000 people hitting it tomorrow, 100,000, just fire up a few more servers. It's all about availability and scalability. So where do you begin in the cloud? If you're not doing anything right now, the marketplace is a great place to start. And a marketplace is where it's exactly it. You can basically buy or look for things that you can start up. The two big ones are the Amazon Marketplace and the Azure Marketplace. Does anybody have experience in the AWS Marketplace? Has anybody logged in, looked for something to start? All right, 1 or 2. All right, we're going to do a little run through. Anything on Azure? Azure Marketplace? A little bit. You had done both. Preference over one or the other? Like one or the other?
I go with Google Cloud.
What's that?
My company runs with Google Cloud.
The Google Cloud. Okay.
That's why I just tried out the both.
You tried them all out. Okay. Yeah, like I said, they were doing really good stuff, so I think they're going to be coming up pretty fast. A little late to the game, but they are going to kick some butt. All right, so let's take a look at the Amazon Marketplace. If you haven't had any experience in this, it's really easy to get going. You can sign in for free. You can hook up a credit card. You can get your corporate doing whichever. There are you can get some free time as well if you use some really low systems. But just to give you an idea of how simple it is to get our database up and running, we're going to do a live demo after this. But I wanted to show you the screenshots and just explain a little bit of what these marketplaces have to offer. So the first thing you do for our product, let's say you leave here and say, hey, all right, I want to try out their database. You would go ahead and in the search bar, just enter vector, will come up, you click on it, and it'll give you our little display. Now we do have 2 versions of our database up there, where you have a community edition, which is free to use, 250 gig of data limit. Any size machine you want, though, if you want to use 32 cores, 128 core machines, you can do that for free. We do have an enterprise version that has support on it. With the community version, you can just start it up. There's no cost on our side. There are still Amazon charges, and that all depends on the size of the machine you want to run. So it's pretty simple. You just follow the screens, you click to subscribe, It brings you to the next screen. You click to configure. You read your terms and condition. And it's actually, I don't know if anybody used it before. They redid it in the past few months. It's a little more complicated. It's supposed to be a little more flowy now, but there's a lot of clicking going on. And all to get you down to launching a machine. But anyway, you can pick your fulfillment. Normally you use an AMI. It's a machine image. You pick your software version. Some products, like if you want to start up CentOS, or you want to start up something else, sometimes they'll have different versions available. We are going to only publish the latest and greatest when we do our updates. Your region. That's just something to let you guys know a little bit about the way Amazon works and Microsoft work, is you have geographical regions in which they have their data centers. Since we're here in New York City, you're going to be running something, you probably want to do something on the East Coast in Virginia. But let's say you guys have counterparts in California. Well, there's West Coast regions. If you have an office out in Germany, they might want to start something in Germany. And there's not a difference in the hardware that's available. That there is some differences in hardware. They have, some places have newer machines as they have upgrades. It's more of your connectivity. The network is really fast no matter where you are. We have offices in Germany. We're using machines in Germany. We have guys in California using machines that are out in Germany. They're here in on the East Coast as well. But if you're going to be working in one area, it makes sense to start a machine up in that geographical area. So we're going to continue to launch. Now, there are different ways to launch it. This is the easy way. This is the, I have no idea how the cloud works, how AWS works. I haven't watched the 140 hours of training classes that Amazon offer. So I'm going to launch through the website. If you want to get fancy, you can go and use what's called the EC2 Console. The console gives you way more configuration power than you probably ever really want. You might get to that level if you're in a production environment. You got to secure your networks and lock everything down. For tonight, we're just going to run through launching from the website. Here's the fun part, your instance type. Now, if you ever get to use a machine, right, when you order a machine for yourself, for either like your desktop, or if you get to order a server, you guys are usually restricted to budgets. You can only buy so much machine. Here's where, if you want to try something out for maybe an hour or two to say, hey, let me see what happens if I get a 25-core system. Let me see if I can justify this to my management. You can do that. And the great thing is, it's not going to cost you $87,000 to do this. It might cost you a couple $100 for the week. But you might find that that's good enough, or maybe that's overkill, so you might be able to just run it with a 4-core machine, or maybe you need the 256-core machine. It's really, really easy to just scale up and pick a machine that you want. So here's some important things. Now, everybody thinks, well, wait a second, I can't run this in the cloud. There's no security. The entire world can get to it. All right, that's the biggest red flag that goes up. Hackers across the world are going to access my stuff. That's not the case. Amazon and Microsoft have done a lot around the security model of things. There's what's called a virtual private connection. This is configured so that you can list it with IP addresses that only have access to the system. So you want to use, did I lose my mic? The batteries go dead? Try again. All right, back. Also your subnet settings. These act as your firewalls, basically. And it's all configurable by you. Again, there's so much configuration available. You don't have to be, you're going to look for another mic? this. Check. All right. Batteries. All right, so I guess you don't have to be a Cisco network engineer to do this stuff. They make it pretty simple. Your security groups, this is where this acts as your firewall for your ports. Now, for our product, what we do is we define certain ports that have access. So your SSH port, and what we call the GCC and GCD. This is our ports that you can have for ODBC and JDBC connectivity and our own internal connectivity tools. You can also create your whitelist of IP addresses, and this is what keeps everything secure. Key pair settings. You have to go and define key pairs. This allows you that SSH access. This is one of the differences we'll see between Azure and AWS, where Azure will allow you to start a server and use passwords. A lot of people have gotten away from passwords because people can hack passwords. I don't know if they can hack key pairs too easily or not, but AWS will not let you create a password. You do have to use keys. Pretty simple, we click launch. You'll then get this congratulations page, and we can go into the EC2 Console to see it up and running. This is where it gets a little fancy. There's a lot of information here. It's not that scary. It's pretty easy to follow. Your important things are is you're looking for that public IP address. This is the IP address that you're going to connect to the system with. There are a few things that I recommend to you guys. If you're using this, enable TCP keep alives. You're going to use your auth for your private key file. And when you connect to our database, if you decide to try this out, we have set the DBaaS password, or our database password, equal to the instance ID. This is a unique identifier. This allows you to connect to the database straight ahead. Nobody will know what this is, and except people in your system. You can then connect and update the password to something else for database access if you want. Does anybody have any questions on AWS?
I ran into this problem with Google Cloud that they have a limit of 94 sites, and you were mentioning 250%. I'm wondering if that works with AWS.
So the question is, Google limits you to 90 cores, about 90 cores, and AWS, we can take a peek when I bring up the live demo, but I've seen at least 128. I thought it was 256.
It's listed in Google as well, but it just doesn't work.
Oh, it doesn't work? Oh, I don't know.
And it tells you that it's limited. So you have a certain CPU power that you can use per site. So
I'm not sure. When I look at that, it comes up as, I think it's like $17,000 a month to start one of those mega systems up, and my manager would have a stroke if I did that. I don't know. That's interesting. So let's take a look at how Microsoft does it. All right, you guys were making fun of me because I use a Microsoft Surface. How many guys are here are Windows people? Any Windows people? Few. Mac guys out there? All right, it's a split room. Some people only want to use AWS. Some people only want to use Azure. They like Microsoft. Some people like Amazon. We have found different companies have different directions, and it's all based on what the upper management has decided upon. So you guys might not have a say in the matter. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I just wanted to give you an idea. So this is the Azure Marketplace. There's all sorts of VMs that you can start up here. That's one difference. When you talk AWS, you talk of AMIs, Amazon Machine Images. When you talk about Azure, they call it VMs, or virtual machines. Not sure the differences, why they went that, but that's the way they talk. So again, if to find vector, you just search the marketplace, will come up, and it'll bring you to our community edition page. On Azure, we have a commercial version or the free version, the community edition. Again, on the community, there's no charge for our software, but you do get charged for the virtual machine that you use, depending on the hardware. If you start something up small, 2 cores, 4 cores, it's a couple dollars a month. You want to try out the 90 plus cores that may or may not work, you could be spending over $17,000 a month. So there's pretty simple, you just click get it now. Again, everybody has to agree to terms and conditions. It's, what we gotta do. Now, they have something called a resource manager. They used to have 2 different models for launching. They've done away with the old one, and now they only have resource manager. So you're gonna click create. And in here, they do things a little different. You're gonna name your VM. You get to give it the name. You get to choose the type of disk. You can use SSDs, or I'm not really sure why you would use HDDs anymore, but it is an option. You get to choose the username for the system. Now, maybe I should have explained a little better before we jumped in. Our image is running CentOS. So it's, I believe, CentOS 7.5. We have our database is pre-installed, pre-configured. We have a demo database, some demo examples. And for the Amazon version, it will start up, and the user is already pre-configured to be Actian. With Azure, they let you choose a username. You're definitely going to want to use Actian because that's how everything's installed and configured. Here's where a big difference is. You can either use passwords or supply an SSH key. You also get what's called a resource group. In Azure, everything's in a resource group. You have your virtual network card, your virtual disks, your virtual everything. There's a list a mile long of different components that make up a virtual machine in Azure. You want to put them into a group because if you ever want to delete this, it makes it really hard to do if you have to do it individual pieces. Again, they also have locations. They're not as complex as Amazon. In this case, we chose East US. They have West, they have Europe, they have Asia, they have all over the place. Here's where they're a little different as well for the machines. I know it's really tiny to see, but let's see, they have, looks like their 32 virtual CPU machine is about $19,000 a month. They don't hide it from you. On Amazon, you kind of have to know how much that system's going to cost ahead of time. You got to go look. I guess they want you to just click big systems and they'll bill you later. You get that good surprise at the end of the month. Here you kind of can see it ahead of time. For something like our VMs for demoing, you could start with a small system, 8 CPUs, 32 gig of RAM each, or 28 gig of RAM. You want to click continue, and here's where it gets a little more complicated. You want to create your firewall group. This is like the virtual private connections and the subnets for AWS. They have network security groups, and we're doing the same thing we did on Azure. Sorry, on AWS, we have our JDBC port open, our SSH port open for our connectivity. Here you can go ahead and you just review it, you click create, and you get this little deployment in progress. Now, one thing I didn't say is these things start up in about 5 or 10 minutes. So you can have a fully functional database server or any of these other servers running in 5 to 10 minutes. Now, how long does it take you to order a system, get it delivered, wire it up, rack it in a system, install the operating system, install the database software, configure all the things that only magicians know how to do that have been working on databases for 20 years to get it, all the connectivity working right. You know, you're talking weeks, sometimes months, going, in 5 minutes we're going to have a database up and running. This is the Azure dashboard, and what we do is look at the virtual machines. This gives you similar information to AWS. The important thing is the public IP. All right, so we're going to take our lives into our own hands here. All right, Victoria? All right, bear with me for a second. We've got a lot of screens open. Our resolution changed, so everything's a little funky right now. All right, so here is the AWS Marketplace. If I search for vector, you can see that we have multiple listings here. We have our enterprise and our community. We can go ahead and subscribe. We're going to accept our terms. I'm going to wait for processing. What's happening? Not sure why it's wanting me. Oh, there we go. All right, so then we continue to configure. We only have a 64-bit AMI here. We only have our software version. And our regions, we were talking about this before. We have something on East Coast in Virginia and Ohio. We have Northern California. We have Oregon. We have Ireland. We have Frankfurt. We have London, Asia Pacific. There's a bunch. Right, these are all different areas you might start up. Like you guys might have development groups out in China or India or anywhere else that might want to start things up over here. You might have stuff in London, in the UK. They can start up their own machines wherever they want. We're going to continue to launch. And here's where you can launch through the console, which is the complicated version and really highly configurable, but we're going to keep things simple. You pick the machine type. Now, if you notice, you remember on the screen, Azure told you how much everything costs. Here, they don't tell you about it up front. You kind of have to guess. There is a whole page on what describes all of these. I can tell you that if I choose a 24 times large, which is 96 virtual cores and 384 gig of memory each, that my phone will start going off the hook because the IT guy will call me screaming, why are we running something that big? So you do have to be a little careful in what you start up. We're gonna pick a 2x large, which is 8 virtual cores of 32 gig. Let's see. Our subnet, right, here we go. Now, the virtual private connections, these will all be pre-configured. There is a little bit of startup you have to do ahead of time. This is either done by you or your network admin, or if you do nothing, there is a default. Because I'm in our development account, we have a dozen different configurations, because we have systems that we only want our offices to connect to. We have demo systems that we want our customers to connect to. So you do have to have a little bit of knowledge on this type of stuff. We're going to use the setup group, which I set up earlier for our security. And then our key pair is me. We're going to click the launch button. That's it. So now I've just started a fairly large machine running CentOS, running our database product. And it took me all of about 90 seconds, I guess, I went through. I think we waited longer for the license agreement to be accepted. This is our EC2 console. Sorry, this is not my console. This is the Amazon console. And these are all the different virtual machines we have running. They are running, let's see, mostly all on the East Coast. And if we can look for the one that's pending, we can see, sorry? Oh, initially. Sorry, my resolution changed, so I'm not used to seeing things squished. So this is our machine that's running, or starting up right now. And we could probably access it if we wanted to right now. It'll take roughly 5 to 10 minutes. I'm not going to make you guys wait. There's no reason to. We did start up a server this morning, and we have a a connectivity tool connecting through JDBC right here. DBeaver, anybody use any open source? You've used DBeaver before? Okay. So I'm not using anything fancy. And in here, we can see our list of tables from our demo database. We have 2 tables in here. But what we're going to do is we're going to import some data. And let's see, bring this back up. Now, what I did ahead of time is I uploaded 2 files to, hold on a second. Bear with me. So one thing I didn't talk about is one of the services of Amazon called S3. Is anybody familiar with Amazon S3? A couple people. It's their cloud-based file system. You can store files up there. You create your own buckets. You put files into those buckets. And what I did is, this is all running in the Amazon cloud. So I uploaded a file. If you look, this is how we access the file online. We're going to save it. Open it real quick just to show you that it's nothing fancy. It's just a CSV file of cell phone data. These are customers and things about the customers and their usages that we have. This is one of the demos that ships with our product. And why am I showing you this? Because when we look at what we can do with our product is we can create external tables. If you take a look up here, our syntax is pretty basic. Create external table. We define the columns. And we're using something called Spark to allow us to take this CSV file and access it as if it was a relational table. But because it's an external table, we really can't do a whole lot to it. We can't query it the way we want to. So what we do then is we will create a table as select star from that external table. I should have maybe asked you, how many people work with databases right now? A few bunch of people. Oracle guys, SQL Server, other stuff. All right. So you guys, this is not too unfamiliar to you guys. So if we go ahead and run this, and refresh, hopefully, we see we have 2 new tables. I have a second file here. We're going to run that. That's going to create our next table, and one more. So here we see now we have our tables that are on S3, which then we created vector tables. This way we can run these queries against the vector tables. All right. Now all of that's just sitting there. What can we do with it? Right? We could run queries against it by hand if you wanted to, or you could use some really cool tools like Tableau. Do we have any Tableau users out there? Anybody? Again, a few guys out there. All right, this is a really basic churn demo of a small set of data that we have. Oh, we lost our screen. Yeah. We had to set the resolution down for the monitor here. But this is a query. I can't see it. Victoria, you know how I get the... I can't see how I get the lower part. It's over there? Oh, there you go. Oh, okay. All right, so what we've done is we've constructed a query that we can take a look at to see what people might be turning over their cell phones. They might be switching. So if we go back to, how do I go back to the big screen? There we go. All right, these are all the different users across the US. Now this is a small set of data. If we zoom in on an area, we might see that down in Florida, there's a high percentage that some females are going to change cell phone providers. So that cell phone service might then decide, hey, I better run a special to try to keep these women using our service. Again, it's a very, very basic example, but I wanted to show you some of the power that if you had real live data, if you had your company's data, that you could run these analytics against our database. You might have this data on S3. You might have this data in Oracle. You might have it in SQL Server. You could export it right into the cloud and load it right back in, use any type of tools with JDBC connectivity to it. I got a lot of people with blank looks on their faces. Is there any questions about this type of stuff? We keep going? All right.
JDBC is very generic. It's like MySQL connection.
JDBC is very generic, yeah. You do need a JDBC driver, which we provide.
Well, that's my question. Because DBaaS is also connected to it, and I didn't see how it was connected to it. Because normally each database comes with its own driver. So I looked about that.
We have JDBC, we're going to see that the data provider all the connectivity.
So once you do it for JDBC, basically all the other connectivity.
Let me just want to repeat. What was...
He was asking what drivers we provide.
Oh, so we provide connectivity for ODBC connections, or we provide a JDBC driver. So we have a jar file that we ship with our product. You drop it into whichever product you're using, and then you connect through a normal connection string.
And it's like any SQL server. I mean, the specs, I don't see any difference. I think that's all.
Well, this tool right here, DBaaS, is a JDBC connection. If I look at my connection, where was it? Validate disconnect. Trying to figure out how to bring up the properties real quick. So in here, we're actually using the Ingress driver. And you just put in your URL, your host name, the database name, user name, and password.
I never worked with Ingress. Is that available by default, or does that need to be installed?
The drive with this particular tool, the driver for Ingress is already installed. You can use the Ingress driver to connect to Ingress or vector database. We have a vector-specific driver. There's really not much of a difference other than the name. It's just not shipped by default with this. All right. So we're getting towards that end there, and everybody's getting antsy for the headphones.
Can I also ask you about the 32 gigs of RAM that you needed at the 8 console? That seems to be overkill for an Excel file.
The question is 32 gig of RAM overkill for
An Excel file.
For an Excel file? Absolutely. Yes. Yes. We wanted to do something really simple. We didn't want to sit here loading data. You can load terabytes of data into the database. It works pretty fast if you use multiple servers with Spark. But we weren't going to sit here and do all of that with you tonight. But we can talk more afterwards. All right, real quick blurb on Vector. Our products releases are what's called Vector or Vector H. Vector is what I just showed you today. It's a single node database server. We have Vector H, which runs in a Hadoop cluster. This means you can run 4 nodes up to, I believe it's 16 nodes. We'll be going to 32 and 64 nodes more. You have massive power that you can use for running database queries in some cases. People might have terabytes of data to churn through. The bigger you scale up on your system, the faster your queries are going to run. We have these available just as standalone systems you see now. We go through the marketplace. We'll be having something called Vector as a Service. And that was the whole title of this leading up to, we are going to do all of the management for you, all of the cloud management, all of the database management. You're going to click a button and you could get a massive system up and running in minutes. Well, about 20 minutes for a Hadoop cluster. Is any Hadoop users in the room? Couple. How long does it take you to get a brand new Hadoop cluster up and running? A week? Yeah. Couple. If you've done it a few times, maybe a day or two, if you're lucky. All right. 20 minutes, you're up and running Hadoop. You don't have to know Hadoop. You don't even know it's there. In fact, I'm probably not even supposed to tell you it's there, but it is. This is kind of an overview of what Vector allows you to do in the cloud. Is we can connect through Tableau, through business objects, MicroStrategy. You can use all sorts of different interfaces to connect to your data. So what is Vector as a Service? Well, it's all of the Vector H that I just talked about, Vector and Hadoop. It allows JDBC or ODBC or .NET connectivity. You can import data directly into it, and it'll be running on Amazon Web Services. We will be offering an Azure version of it as well because, like I said earlier, there are some corporates who have a direction of which they prefer to use. But this is now Vector running in the cloud. It'll be through a web console. You don't need to install any software locally. You can just easily click. It's self-service, and if, let's say, 4 nodes not enough for you, you can scale up to 32 nodes with a click of a button. There's no hardware or software for you to install. We do all the monitoring. We have certified security specialists on our team, network security. We have people that have been doing cloud services for 10 years or so now. We take care of all that back end. You come to us for any support issues, and it's very locked down, very secure. It is not multi-tenant, it's single tenant, so if you're starting up something, you're not going to be able to access his data. Completely separate, completely firewalled separately as well. This is an example of Hadoop running in Amazon Web Services. You might have all of this data. This is what we just showed you today. You have Amazon S3 buckets. We showed, you know, a 10,000 line CSV file. You might have terabytes of data that you unloaded. You can use Spark in a parallel manner. The more nodes you have, the more buckets you have, you can load all of this in parallel. So it's secure, it's highly available. We're doing all the management for you. Examples you may have heard of, Snowflake. Anybody heard of Snowflake? A couple snowflakes. BigQuery, Google BigQuery, AWS Redshift. These are all products, very similar hosted database products. Our version will be based on Vector, and like the giveaways before, we are 100 times faster than most of the competitors out there. So we can handle all of this for you. Won't keep you guys too long on all of this. If you want to give Vector a try, just try it out on the website. Go ahead, go to the Azure Marketplace, go to the AWS Marketplace, and give it a shot. It's really simple. Connect to it. There are demo databases loaded with it. If you have something more complex you want to try out, give us a call, an email rather. And I thank you guys for listening. If there's any questions, you can come on up, ask. If not, I know what everybody's waiting for, raffle time. I do thank everybody for sitting through, listening. We have lots of literature up there. If you guys have any questions, we'll be here a little while afterwards. And if you have any questions, not even on our product, on Vector, on the cloud stuff, Azure, AWS, I'd be happy to chat with you guys afterwards. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, Christopher Hane. Christopher will be here for one-on-one questions right after the raffle. Please come up and ask him. But let's start off with, where is the raffle bucket? Let's see. I'm going to pick on you again. Can I ask you to... Wait, hold on, I got to remove that. Wow. Just mix it all up. Turn it. Go for it. One more. You also coming up? This is the time. Okay. Can I ask you to reach in and look the other way and reach in and grab a card out? You're really not looking. Go in. Yeah, that's it. Pull a card out. All right, read it.
Tommy Garcia.
Tommy Garcia, congratulations. Thank you all for coming. Yeah.